out of stuff.
All right. And so this is story time with Talmage. Take 3 and action.
Here we go.
We're good.
How was that?
That was great.
Awesome.
Fun bubble blowing time.
Oh, yes. All right.
Okay,
what question
so
are we on?
we're going to pick up with... We're going to start with... Oh, yeah. I know where
teaching.
we are. Yeah,
Yep.
teaching. Okay, so...
After our third interruption.
Was it only the third?
Just maybe 4th.
Maybe 4th or 5th.
Yeah,
too many. Anyway, all right, Talmage. Well, tell us about your how you actually became an EMS instructor.
Sure. So I had met you at EMT Utah
Mhm.
at a certain point. That's a private school that does essentially the same certification.
In the summer of 2018.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I had met Rachel, and we had essentially discussed getting me officially certified, because I worked in an unofficial capacity, it was essentially like an intern type program, I think you could describe it as. But then I went and got my real certification, which was a fantastic class. Rachel did a great job, really. But
yeah, it was all right.
No, it was good. It was good.
We had fun, didn't we?
It was, yes, yeah. It was excellent. So from there, it's a 3-day course, I think it was, for training officer and all that. So it's just like to actually teach an EMS in an official capacity, like certified by the state. Basically, it's a 3-day course, and it's pretty easy. I mean, you do have to like demonstrate that you can teach and set up lesson plans and lectures and all that, but it's not
and how to write
difficult.
objectives
And have the right objectives, yes, all that
kinds
good
of stuff
that Rachel thought about. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't just me.
Oh yeah,
just one part of that.
There was also Popeye. I forgot about Popeye. Yeah. So essentially from there, I began teaching at this private school in an official capacity with an actual license. I got my course coordinator and all the other certs I needed to move forward with that, which is done through the state of Utah. And then I believe between that time somewhere was when I was at Davis ER. I believe my sense of time is just all over the place.
It's all right. You've done so many things. Yeah, it's all blending
just,
together.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
So then I worked as a critical care tech in an ER, which was awesome experience. Especially depending on what you were at the time. I was leaning more towards a clinical path, which I've kind of since diverged from that, and I'm kind of more interested in fire. But when you're more interested or more inclined towards the medical or clinical side of things, I shouldn't say medical, it's more clinical, so to speak. When you're more inclined towards that, working in an ER is just a fantastic way to do it. It's a great experience, and my experience there was definitely awesome. We actually, during the I believe it was the hurricane that hit Texas. During that hurricane, we had lost like all our nursing staff, a couple of our doctors, just so many people because they were out there volunteering. So I ended up getting to do stuff well outside of my scope of practice, which was great. If anybody ever asks you like, hey, do you want to try this thing? And you're like, oh, that's kind of scary. That's kind of, I don't know if I'm comfortable doing that. If you can have them just walk you through it and just go for it, honestly, just take the leap of faith.
If the opportunity to learn something is there and you have a qualified individual willing to teach you, take the teaching moment, right?
Yeah, don't lie and be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely
I'm proficient at this. No, never ever do that.
Don't do that.
But take the opportunity to learn.
Yes, if somebody is like giving you an opportunity, and be able to recognize those times when somebody's like saying, oh, well, do you want me to show you, or you'll know when the opportunity's hit, because they'll make it pretty clear.
You'll feel very uncomfortable but excited at the same time.
Exactly.
Like, yes, please.
Something scary, and do you want to try this? You're like, I don't know if I want to try this, but the answer is yes, try it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not totally comfortable with that, obviously, don't. But those opportunities are something to look for. Um, yeah, I think. And now, obviously, I'm here at CTech.
Yeah.
Teaching with everybody here.
Having
It's
a good
fantastic.
time.
I really do love my teaching experience here. I will not lie, has been a million times better than the other place I was at.
Oh.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And education, I love education generally, but it is such a little known secret, I think, in EMS that like the education side of things, it's, relatively speaking, it's good money. It's so much fun, and you sharpen your skills by teaching all this stuff.
You kind of have to know it.
Oh yeah,
And if
yeah.
you don't know it,
You'll
you
learn it.
find that you learn and you study more so that you're prepared to teach it, and it
100%.
makes you better.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to teach, because I wanted to be the best.
Yeah.
Not necessarily better than anyone else, but I
Well,
wanted
there's
to be the
nothing wrong
best
with
that I
that.
could be, and teaching kind of helps you do that.
Yeah.
So
You have to just sharpen all your skills. People ask you questions that you don't necessarily know the answers to, and then you got to figure it out. And it really makes you kind of dissect all of the curriculum just so much deeper. So I definitely, if you have an opportunity to ever get into teaching, start with CPR teaching. CPR instructing it's
CPR, first
honestly,
aid.
it's easy. Obviously, like actually have done CPR, but definitely starting at a place like CPR or first aid, Heart Saver is another program that you can teach through the American Heart Association. All of those programs are like a short online class, and it'll get you just right into teaching. And like I said, volunteer stuff. That's
And
been
a video
fantastic
walks
for
you
me.
through every step of everything you should say, everything you need to do. It's very repetitive. So you become very good at teaching the same thing over and over again. It isn't a really large scope of knowledge that you have to know. So yeah, I think that's a great suggestion for getting into teaching.
There's some unsolicited advice there.
I think it's really good.
Thank you.
Okay, so Talmage. I can't remember. So I'm just going to say this again because I don't know if we had to edit it out because we were interrupted so much.
That's okay. We can edit it again
before, but just if I already said it, it's okay. It can be said again. So Talmage, I was saying in the first time that we tried this that you look so much more mature.
Oh, thank you.
And that almost sounds like it could be rude, but I don't mean it in a rude way. You look
okay.
older than you really are. And when I first met you, I thought you were 30, early 30s, maybe late 20s, but I definitely thought you were 30. And we got to talking about your age, and you told me that you were only 21. And I just didn't believe it. I thought, there's no way this kid is only 21. Like, no way. Because you are so intelligent, and you have a way with speaking and carrying yourself, and the way that you teach, and the depth of knowledge that you have, and the amount of experiences, the things that you've already lived through and taken part in and been part of. I just couldn't believe that someone only 21 years old had already done all the things that you've done. And so I was totally shocked when you told me only a year ago he was 21, and now you're 22.
Yes.
Yeah. Very intelligent.
But that's not far from them. And like I said, I was not a good high school student. You never should put yourself in a mindset that you can't, figure things out, because you had teachers that told you you're a F up or whatever. I guess I shouldn't say that.
You can say that.
All right. You should just never allow that kind of mentality to take place, because you can always surpass, I guess, a lesser self that you were once. So definitely don't get hung up in a pessimistic attitude about your future, because I mean, things could always get worse, but most of the time it's just going to go up as you get older. And you guys are, like I said, you're not far off from even my age. It seems like a long time, but it's really not. And you could get so much more done than I've done. I really have not done that much, relatively speaking. Like, honestly.
You're being very humble.
No, I looking back, I wish I could go back and do so much more. Like, there were times I could have been doing things while I was, in college, but I was like, I'd rather get,
You were enjoying life too?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we all should, but you guys got a lot of time to do that. So
Well, I love what you just said, because I think part of, at least for me, part of the point is, you know, I think all good stories start with something really that we're not very happy with, whether
for
we
sure.
made
Yeah.
choices that weren't very good or
Hmm.
someone else made choices that weren't very good, and we've kind of suffered a little bit, or we've had
Yeah.
experiences we didn't like, and then we have to grow from them, even if it's just regret, like, oh, I should have done that.
Oh yeah.
you
Yeah.
know Now you know, and
Hmm.
now
Yeah.
you are more inclined to say, this is what I want, so I'm going to go
Yeah.
in that direction
Yeah.
and go after it.
Yeah. It's
So, and
definitely a
you're very
skill.
much that kind of a person, which I
Thank you.
admire so much in
Thank
you.
you. I do wish I figured it out earlier, so you guys have an opportunity to learn from my
You're
mistakes.
still only 22. You have
I got some
time.
time.
You have time. You have lots of time. You're good. Okay, so Talmage, we're going to move into story time.
Oh yeah.
So,
Okay.
do you have
Story
a
time.
story or two that you would like to share?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Mine. I was listening to Monty stories, and his have happy endings. I don't know that mine very happy endings. They're entertaining. So this one was at a donation center that is vague and obscure and not something I already disclosed. Uh, just it was at a donation center, and essentially there was a guy who had been uncomfortable with his stick, with the needle that was in his arm. Basically, he was like, "This is uncomfortable," and he started getting super upset. So the guy is sitting there, and there's some girl next to him who hadn't eaten, and oftentimes that's a bad idea with plasma donation. So basically, the guy ends up just. I don't know if he had a panic attack or like a full on mental break, but he rips his needle out, right? And these are pressurized machines too. They've got pumps going. So he's got it. It goes into a centrifuge, and it separates the blood from the plasma, but the blood is still not separated at this point. So basically, the back pressure on the machine just shoots all of the blood that was in this centrifuge that hadn't been spun yet, just shoots it up at the ceiling like
Oh,
fountain, just gushing. And this
you
guy's
probably
like
have
screaming.
patients all over the place, right?
Oh, it's bed, 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 bed,
Yeah.
bed. So there was blood like all over the girl, like right next to him. I got blood all over my lab coat, like I was covered. And then this guy is like getting in employees' faces. I was like down the way, but my first thought was like, oh, I gotta come over here and stop this bleed. But this guy like isn't letting anybody touch him. He's just bleeding all over the floor. Um, and then the gal next to him started throwing up, right? And they're locked into a bed.
Was she throwing up because she was upset about the blood, or was she sick
It
in a
it
different way?
was probably like psychosomatic in a way,
Yeah.
but I would assume she had already not eaten. She was looking like pretty pale before that, and then this guy doing all that, I'm sure just pushed her right over the edge. She
Yeah.
was done.
Yeah.
So she started vomiting all over herself, right? And you can't move. You're not like locked down into a bed, but if you move too much, you have this massive needle in your arm, right? And you're gonna. So, and this is actually what happened. Is she ended up leaning into the needle. This is actually a different story. I'm mixing up my stories here. This gal was actually fine, but then this guy ran outside. Dude starts just like he's screaming at everybody, and he gets up against the big glass doors, and he just drops his pants and just moons everybody inside the center. Just
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
yeah, touching his toes basically.
Oh
It was pretty
no.
bad. Yeah.
Why did he do that?
I I think it might have been like a mental break or something. He was upset that the like machines were going slow. Sometimes if you get a less than satisfactory stick, it wasn't
It
mine.
just seems a little out of the ordinary kind of response to being
I
upset,
mean,
though.
honestly, there's a lot of people there that can be a little bit more desperate for money. So you can get some people in pretty desperate situations where like I need this money. This
Yeah.
machine isn't taking my plasma out, and I'm not going to get my money. So they'll throw like a real tantrum over it. But it's understandable. It's
Yeah.
definitely not an easy position to be
I don't
in.
know
So
that dropping your pants
not
and
that.
yeah,
Can't advocate that for sure.
showing everyone you're
Yeah.
behind
Hmm.
is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It
that's
was something
crazy.
else.
crazy.
Um,
Crazy times.
oh
Holy
yeah,
cow.
yeah, yeah. There was another one there where, see, this is what I'm saying about this plasma center. Surprisingly, you actually get a lot of different, I would maybe pseudo emergency scenarios where, people actually do need patient care on
Mm-hmm.
at least a basic level. There was another time when a girl had seized up, presumably because she was dehydrated. But people will go in there, they don't eat, they don't drink water before, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So she started seizing up, right? She kind of went in a almost like a decorticate position. She was like this basically, and the needle almost like penetrated through her entire like arm. It stopped at the bone, but the needle went
Yeah.
really deep into her arm. That was so you get like emergency scenarios that are really good. I definitely in terms of
Not really
experience, I'd
good,
recommend it.
but you learn from
I'm
them.
sorry, I should
Yeah.
word that differently.
Yeah.
That's
Kind of
not
crazy,
good,
but you
but
learn.
for experience, you'll learn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting story. Like I said, it doesn't really have a happy ending like some of the other ones.
Well, not every story has a happy ending,
No,
right?
no, not in
But
this
every
world.
story has an opportunity for us to learn something and become better.
Yes, yes,
I truly
100%.
believe that.
Yeah, yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Okay, second story. I may need to think about this one for a second. This one is.
Yeah, take your
I'm
time.
trying to think about where it was a Friday the 13th, of course.
Oh,
This is in the ER. Yeah, fun day,
sounds like
right?
this will be an interesting one
I think
already.
you've heard it, but basically, whether or not you're I'm not a superstitious guy, but Friday the 13th in an ER or on an ambulance, just not a good time.
They kind of, and full moons, they really do kind of
Honestly, yeah,
tend to be a little more
yeah,
interesting and you're a little more on your toes.
yeah. It
Yeah,
was it was a weird
it is
night. There
weird.
was it. We got the. I mean, there was so many admits that day. We had so many patients coming in. It was a disaster. It was so chaotic, and it was like, how? How does this even happen? Like,
Yeah,
obviously, it's Friday the 13th, but that's just pure superstition. But we just kept getting hit with patient after patient after patient, and it was like one gal was in a diabetic coma, other one like serious car accident, like serious traumas, like bad stuff, and then just weird stuff too. We had like I'm trying to think of a way to be vague about this, so I'm not doing a HIPAA. We had
and you can even skip
basically.
that part of the story if it's not too relevant, or
I'll skip it. I'm gonna skip it.
yeah, change the
So
names and
yeah,
locations, and
basically
yeah,
there was a couple that for some of their odd behaviors, it was kind of a weird night. She was actually also a diabetic, but she crap, I'm gonna have to cut that.
it's okay. Keep going.
All right.
We
So
can always
she
edit.
she was kind of in a situation herself. She wasn't sure if she was low on blood sugar, but she was freaked out. Like she was kind of starting to have a panic attack. And she had a patient that I was going to do a transfer for her. Which you take a patient from a floor like an ER bay, right? You take them from an ER room up to a more long term or outpatient facility, right? So it's kind of different aspects of care. So I was supposed to do this transfer, and there was this massive dude, like I think he was like 6'4", like 300 pounds. Definitely,
Wow.
definitely in some pretty serious stages of dementia, and he was doing this really weird repetitive behavior where he was laying, and the nurse that the nurse that had dealt with this patient had essentially set him in a semi-reclined position. So his head is down here, right, and his feet are up here.
Like in a Trendelenburg.
He basically,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So he, for whatever reason, he kept like shooting up and then looking around, and he would reach in his mouth like he was looking for something, and then he would like mumble like, "Where are my teeth?" He thought he was missing his teeth.
Mm-hmm.
He had most of his teeth. So then he would just do that over and over again as I was moving him, right? Like almost like an animatronic, like one of those like horror rides. Again, this is like Friday the 13th, so everybody's
Mm-hmm.
already on edge. And this guy is just like going back and forth doing that, and I'm in the elevator with him, and it's a freight elevator, but you've barely got like 6 feet by 6 feet a space, probably like 8 by 8. But um, basically, I'm in there with him, and he shoots up and just lunges right at my neck and just starts choking. Right, I'm not like a massive dude, so I'm just alone in there, and um, I'm with this guy, and he eventually stopped. Like he just like laid back down. But it was an experience I totally wasn't prepared for because this nurse had essentially like not told me with the transfer, like, hey, this patient is, potentially violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And maybe
that's an
she knew
interesting
that, maybe
story.
she didn't.
I think she was just too overwhelmed, which sometimes it's okay to
Yeah.
get like that.
And maybe it
Sometimes
would have been nice to know he's kind of delusional or,
I would not have been
yeah.
upset if she'd told me. I asked her a couple
Yes.
times, let's deal with the
Yeah.
transfer, but it happens.
And it
People can
sounds
get
like it was just a
overwhelmed.
crazy,
It was so chaotic.
everything
Yeah,
was just chaotic. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It was a very. That's just Friday the 13th.
that's a
So.
scary experience, though.
Oh
That
yeah,
must have
yeah.
terrified you.
I mean, it was definitely pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad he let go.
I'm glad he let go too. You never really think like, okay, patients are, for the most part, you get some patients who are like, okay, this person's dangerous, but until you have an experience where you're like, holy crap, these people can be dangerous. You kind of
Yeah.
don't take it seriously in
Yeah.
a sense, which
You hear stories,
you only hear
but until it
stories, right?
happens to
Yeah,
you or you get close to something happening, you're like, oh,
I'm probably
it
fine.
bumps it up another level of your
Hmm.
situational awareness.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're a lot
Yeah.
more aware after something like that.
Yeah. You definitely start taking calls like like a homicidal or a suicidal patient very seriously.
Yeah.
You do start worrying about things like guns. Is there a
Yeah.
gun on the scene, right? You start worrying about all that.
And even trusting what your patient tells you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
precisely. So there's definitely um, there's definitely a lot to learn from that experience, but making sure you are always watching out for yourself and especially your partners, the people you work with, is definitely essential. So yeah, not a
Right at
very
the top
fun
of the
story, but
list.
just I mean, it'll give you an idea that there's a lot of superstition, especially in ERs. You start to learn like the culture, like there's
I don't know,
certain
fire
things you don't
departments
say.
too, like don't
Yeah,
say the Q word. Oh,
same
don't
thing in the
ever say
ER. Yeah, you
that.
don't say
Yeah.
the Q word,
Yeah.
or you are
If
gonna
you
get.
do, you're dirt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
you will be hated. Do not say the Q word. Should we
Yeah.
tell them the Q word?
No, don't say it.
I
No,
know,
don't
but
say it. They
can
can
you write
figure
it?
it out. Can you write it? No, they can figure it out,
All right,
right?
they'll figure it out.
Yeah. Things are very calm. There's no noise,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Things seem to be going
silent.
smooth
It's
and
silent.
yeah, everything's
Yeah.
going well. And gosh, patients are cooperating.
Mm-hmm.
Your colleagues are all getting along well.
Yeah.
You have time to take a bite of your food.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
someone drops the Q word and
And
it
everybody,
changes.
yeah,
Everything changes.
oof,
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah. Crazy
Learn,
stuff.
learn from other people for sure.
Yes.
I made that mistake early on. I think it was like my first day. Yeah. Yeah. Don't do it.
Your first day.
They were honestly so cool about it. It was a pretty good group of people. Depending on your rotations and
Yeah.
the shifts you're on, you can get stuck with terrible people. You can get stuck with really fantastic doctors,
But either way,
nurses,
you've
and
got to learn how to get along
techs.
with everybody, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And either way, you don't say the Q word.
Yeah. Either
So,
way, no matter what. Okay. So, Talmage, the
mm,
last thing I want to go with or ask you about
sure.
is because you haven't necessarily been in EMS for a lot of years, but
Yeah,
man, you sure have had a lot of experiences already,
sure, sure.
and worked in some very interesting places and volunteered in an awful lot of
Hmm.
um, facilities. And I would love to know, for anyone that's thinking about getting into EMS, anyone who has decided to take the leap and jump into
Hmm.
this field, but they're still kind of new. They really don't have very much experience yet,
Sure.
or they could, they're going through school and
Hmm.
they're like, I'm not really sure if I want to do this or not. Or even if they're totally gung ho, they really do want to do this. What would you like to
Hmm.
leave as your advice to students, to new people? What have you learned? What have you gained? And what can you leave with them?
Sure, sure. I got a pretty good one off the top of my head. Among what I've already said, right? volunteer as much as you can.
Yeah.
Right. Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, more experienced than you, and just know, definitely know that you're not the smartest person in the room. You just have to know that. And be humble enough to know that there are people who just have immense amounts of experience and always be willing to learn from it. I am always trying to learn from people who I know more than me. And you have to do that if you want to move up, because arrogance is not the way. It's like a team sport. If you're an arrogant, egotistical person, it is going to be a lot harder to make it in this world. I mean, some of them do, and that's just a fact. But definitely be humble enough to listen to people. My, I think, third piece of advice here, and my final piece of advice, would be don't burn bridges. If you have a bad experience at any place, and specifically at the job I worked in the ER, I kind of wish I would have stayed longer. I had a petty argument. I won't even get into it. There was somebody who worked on an entire different floor with me that it was like a petty, dramatic thing, and because HR, hadn't exactly solved it in a timely enough manner, and I was at that point like fed up, especially after that particular night, right? I had just decided to leave. I didn't even give notice. It's like, that is so stupid. Do not just do not just cut something off. Never burn a bridge. Never burn a bridge. Always keep it open. Always, even if you have a bad experience with, a coworker, right? You never know what's going on in like upper management. You never know if it's, a little bit more complex. Don't just cut the umbilical cord, so to speak, right? Keep those relationships and foster your network of people, because that is your best way to, I think, move up in EMS or any field, that applies anywhere.
You never know, especially in EMS. It seems like this is such a small world. Like
Everybody talks.
Everybody talks, but you never know when you're going to have the opportunity to work with them again.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
I think we've all been there. I think everyone that's been in this field for any length of time has had some kind of uncomfortable situation that they've been in, or started a fight, or been involved in something that wasn't happy. And
so
you have to learn how to communicate with people.
Yeah.
And how to, I don't know, work through issues and
Just
try to leave it the
stuff
best you
at
can.
home. When you go to the job, you just leave it at home, no
Yeah.
matter what it is. And like in my particular case, wasn't exactly avoidable. This person was very upset, but you just have to leave it because you're ignoring your patients. There's nothing else to say. It's like your patient comes first. All the other BS at home needs to come after. Like, obviously, don't neglect your relationships. That's something that can happen in EMS if you really do, start to get into it. But definitely try to leave all the drama and, BS at home. So,
do you think it's possible to have a strained relationship with a colleague, whether that's another EMT or a CNA or a nurse or a doctor or a PA?
Absolutely.
Do you believe it's possible to get along with them while you're taking care of the patient, and then you both just go your separate ways, do your job? Like you kind of can have an agreement and you just do the best for your patient?
My
Do you
particular
think it's possible?
I think it's possible, but like I said, it's, a lot of EMS, it's like it's a team sport. You have to do things together, right? You do a move together, or, there's so many things you have to do, and a lot of the time, you know, those personalities in the field often can't let those things go. And those kind of people, if that's you, you got to work through that before making it, because, hurting a patient, or, just outright neglecting a patient because there's some just nonsensical crap that does not mean anything materially, right? It should not affect anything you're doing with your patient.
Yeah.
That's just the
You
bottom
have
line.
to focus on caring for people, right?
Oh, very first, yeah.
Yeah. Talmage, you You have been amazing, and
Oh, thank you.
I have enjoyed
I feel like
talking
this has
with you
gone so
so
long.
much. Well, I think it's only because we've been interrupted over and over
No,
again.
I hope we can cut this down to 30 minutes. I don't want to be on camera for more than 30. That's my max.
That's your max. You have a maximum.
Now
You have a
you can
limit.
do whatever you want.
You know, I think I've just really enjoyed talking with you, as I always do.
Same. Yeah.
I just really enjoy your company, and
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your friendship. And you're such a great teacher and just a great friend. And I am just truly, genuinely appreciative that you were willing to do this. So
Yeah.
there you go, students. There's Talmage in our dim lighting
Yeah,
in the back of our little training ambulance.
we did our best.
Yeah, we did. We made it work, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, all right. Thanks, Talmage.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye.